And we are live. Week 5, NFL. I guess we can sort of chit chat about week 4 while we wait for people to sort of stream in.
All right.
For me personally, week 4, it was my first red week actually all season. And it's because I played a ton of Kyler Murray and the Cardinals.
Yeah, my mistake was not managing. I can't remember who. Oh, Brees Hall. Not managing Brees Hall exposure right. I had way too much in my final 150 set.
Yeah, I got a couple plays right, and then a couple plays that I was like really sold on, like the Cardinals. It didn't come through. So, Jaden Reed, we were big on Jaden Reed last week, and he showed up to the party, which is always good.
Yep.
I was big on another, like I think half my lineups had Aaron Jones plus Jaden Reed, and obviously like I needed everybody on the Vikings but Aaron Jones. So,
yeah. The Bears stacks I went with let me down a little bit, but DJ Moore ended up being decent as a play.
No, yeah.
He got a touchdown. I'm trying to think who else I had a bunch of. Let me see. That was Monday. It wasn't a memorable week. I ended up losing money on FanDuel.
Yeah. All right, we're going to run it back turbo this week and take care of things.
Yeah. Just need that 1 week. I thought that 1 week where everything was going to go right was 2 weeks ago with Saquon going off. I had a bunch of him.
Yeah. The Eagles, man, what a terrible team.
Yep.
Should we hop in to week 5 here?
Let's do it.
So this week we've got a couple pretty attractive game environments, a couple middling environments, and then like a couple just absolute stinkers that we're going to spend like 5 seconds on probably.
Well, depends on which one you think are the stinkers, because there's one that you might think is a stinker that I'm probably going to be interested in again.
You like the Dolphins and the Patriots?
No, not that one.
Okay. No, I mean, I'm mostly like Dolphins, Patriots, and then Broncos, Raiders probably aren't going to be places I'm focused on a whole lot here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the game totals or game environments that we do like this week. Highest total of the week is going to be Cardinals, Niners. Your San Francisco 49ers are back to full strength, allegedly, more or less.
Chalky everywhere. It doesn't feel like they were this chalky last year. But I guess it's just because Mason is cheap compared to where McCaffrey usually is.
Yeah. I think Brock Purdy's also slinging the rock just all game long now.
He looks good this year. I was hesitant about paying him because his contract's up this year. I was hesitant about getting him the big extension, but the way he's looked this year without McCaffrey and without Debo and Kittle, he's looked very, very good. He's been very impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree. Now he's got all the weapons back, and it's another game of whack-a-mole. And if you're playing Purdy, who are you stacking him with? Jennings.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I was just gonna say, how's Jennings' price doing now that other receivers are back? He's at 5,600. Kind of feels pretty steep for what his role is with all the players back.
Yeah, he's pretty much out of play for me at that price. Yeah. And I mean, the only way he gets there is if somebody gets hurt early.
Yep. Ownership wise, it looks really interesting. There's a ton of ownership on the Niners side, which makes sense. They're pretty huge favorites here. Quarterback wise, Purdy 14%. Kyler Murray, mobile quarterback, let down last week, but has shown some pretty good performances in the past at 1.6%. I mean, if they're playing from behind and they're throwing the ball, I don't hate getting over that and trying to play the Cardinals side of the ball as well here.
Yeah, historically the Niners have struggled a little bit against Kyler when he's been healthy in Arizona. I don't mind it. I think the Niners defense is more vulnerable than the names on the team would suggest, the names on the roster would suggest, but it's not really the game that I'm looking to stack up. I think this week for me, it seems like the ownership looks pretty efficient. Like I don't really have any big complaints about some of the ownership, and the Niners are kind of included in that. Like the winning lineup is probably going to have a Niner in some shape or form.
Yep.
And
I was just checking too. I didn't know if Trey McBride was going to be playing this week. I didn't know because he was injured, but he got full practices in Thursday and Friday, so
Yeah, I
looks
think
like
he's
he's
good to
going to
go.
be playing, which is good for the Cardinals to stay in the game. He's like without Trey McBride, I don't know if the Cardinals are able to really push the ball at all. He's been pretty solid for them as like just a middle of the field, consistent target.
Yeah, agreed there. I mean, the Kyler sec always has a chance to get there. We saw in week 1 against Buffalo. Buffalo, I guess until they lost the Ravens, Buffalo was like the best team in the league, and Arizona was up by 2 scores in that game. So they'll be able to get points. And I mean, Kyler's stacks are pretty much always live. So if I end up with some of my set of 150, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and Jordan Mason to me is interesting this week because we have all the players back. The offense is going to obviously be turning a lot better and have those goal line opportunities for him. Like Mason is that like yardage and touchdown back. And I didn't play him a lot last week or the week before because I thought his ownership was too high for where it's at. But now he's still fairly owned, but I do think he has more opportunities to get his scoring in because he's a yardage and touchdown back. The team total's there, the gaming script is there as far as like they're going to be playing from ahead and they're going to run the ball as much as they can. So I do kind of like going back to Jordan Mason, even though the ownership is still high. I'm comfortable playing into it this week, whereas the past weeks I don't think I have been.
Yeah, the floor for him is just extremely high with the usage he's getting in the offense right now, especially on FanDuel where it's half PPR. So you don't like somebody like a more receiving back like a Kamara or whatever has more value on DraftKings. On FanDuel, the floor for Mason seems pretty safe compared to most other running backs.
That's some chalk I'm more than happy to eat up this week. Stacking options for the Niners, I mean, it's the same every week. I mean, I'm not playing Purdy +4, but I mean, I think pairing Mason with Purdy is a pretty good way to stack it because you're getting the passing and the rushing touchdown upside. As long as Debo doesn't like run a 10-yard end around into the end zone, you get a lot of equity there. But if you're passing or if you're stacking the pass catchers, do you have a favorite between Debo, Ayuk, Kittle?
Well, I mean, it's always Debo's my favorite, but I'll just take the lower owned one, right? I'll take Ayuk over Debo until that ownership gets a little more even. I feel like Ayuk's people just are mad at Ayuk because he held out. He got paid, and he's been inconsistent to start the year, but he hasn't practiced for a month, so it's not surprising he's looked inconsistent. At some point, he's going to start looking like the number one receiver again. So yeah, he's fine with me. He's like 1/3 the ownership of Debo. So for that reason, I'll probably end up with more Ayuk this week. But Debo's always one to me. I love that guy.
And pricing's so tough here too because you've got both Debo and Ayuk in the 6s, and on the other side, Marvin Harrison Jr. is only carrying 2.5% ownership, which is great, but he is 7,500. So
yeah,
to me, like, he's still a fine GPP play because you're not playing him for like his 15-point medium outcome. Like you're playing him for his smash ceiling, which he's capable of at 7,500. But I mean, man, you're paying for that price tag this week. And when we get into receivers, there's a lot of good receivers in the mid range that I like this week. So I think he's just getting squeezed out from the top end, like Jamar Chase up top, and then you've got a ton of value here, like in the 6s and 5s that people are going to be going to. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr., if you want like a leverage and a pivot spot, I mean, the game environment's going to be there for them, and he's got a super ceiling. So
yeah, it's really hard to stack him and Kyler and bring back a Niner, especially Mason, who would be like the natural bring back. But it definitely feels like you can get there with a Purdy, Debo, Marvin Harrison stack, for example. Yeah, and there's enough value, I think, to be able to afford that this week.
With you there. Pretty good game environment there. Another super popular spot. Well, I don't know if it's going to be popular because of the pricing, but the game environment is really good, and that is the Ravens-Bengals game. These are teams that we saw recently. Obviously, Derrick Henry put the herd on, and it looks like the Ravens are actually running the ball really well. They're not passing as much as they used to in years past, and I think like the reason they got Henry in the first place is because they want to establish the run, control game script, and he's doing just that for him. And he's pretty pricey here, but I mean his performance was incredible, and as far as a GPP play, he's one of the highest ceilings on the slate.
Yeah, you got to turn off your Slack notifications.
Yeah, I know, man. Getting hounded.
Yep. Yeah, I don't. In general, I talked about this before last night's game, and obviously ended up being the complete wrong take. But in general, I don't really love stacking up these divisional games. These teams know each other so well, defensively especially. They kind of know, like Luan and Rumo knows what the Ravens are going to do, and vice versa. So for me, I'm usually not like a big fan of stacking up these divisional games. But the ownership, you can't really complain about the ownership. All these guys are single digits. I mean, these are all premium players. skill position players: Henry, Chase, Higgins, even Zay Flowers. It gets a lot of PPR stats, so I don't mind stacking it, but I'm not going to be like targeting this first this week for a stack.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I like about this game is that the Bengals are going to be passing from behind most likely. They want to pass, and the Ravens sort of have that pass funnel defense. And then on the other side of the ball, the Bengals run defense sucks, and the Bengals run defense sucks, and the Ravens want to run the ball. So it sets up really well for like the strengths of Derrick Henry to exploit the Bengals, but also for Burrow and Chase to exploit sort of that pass funnel defense of the Ravens. I mean, like you said, like divisional matchup, these teams play each other all the time. Like these games in the past have gone up to like 50-point totals or more, in game. And, if the ownership stays this way, I think it's a good spot to stack in a few of your lineups, but I'm not playing these guys as like a one-off last man in the lineup. If I want to target this game environment, it's going to be through like a game stack or like a super stack.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I ran a sim earlier with the flea flicker on DraftKings. It's like 60,000 entries. And then in the top lineup was a Burrow, Gesicki, Derrick Henry stack. And then there was another Burrow with Higgins and Gesicki in the top 5. So, I mean, the Sims like getting to this game, it seems like, this week.
Yeah, that makes sense to me with like the ceiling that these players have along with their ownership. Pricing is going to be tough, but it's definitely possible to stack this game and get your upside there. Just don't play Mark Andrews, I guess, because all he does is block now. What happened to Mark Andrews?
I don't know. It's so weird. Because it's like nothing really changed, He got hurt, but it's like still Todd Monken in the offense, so it's still Lamar. They didn't add any like receivers. So yeah, it's just really strange.
Yeah, so I mean, good environment there. This is kind of like the Purdy Mason situation. I mean, where like if you do end up playing Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in a lineup, it's hard to do with the pricing and stuff. But you basically, because the stacking partners for Lamar, like he spreads it around so much, and their pass volume is not so high that if Lamar's hitting, it guarantees a receiver hitting. It could be one off to this player, one off to that player. Free one catch, 40-yard touchdown for a player, and he's not in the optimal, but Lamar gets it. So if you're playing like Lamar and Derrick Henry together, you get like all the touchdown upside, a big ceiling, and you don't have to force yourself to play the receivers. And it's going to be a little bit more unique. I mean, people are still naked stacking these running quarterbacks, but quarterback and running back, I think, is a pretty good stack here.
Yeah, I mean, the Lamar and Henry having 4 rushing touchdowns combined is definitely within the range of outcomes. I just wonder if it's possible to make a competitive lineup where you have a $7,500 quarterback, $7,800 running back from the same team, and there's practically no correlation there. And in fact, it's probably negative correlation. But Higgins to me looks like a good bring back at 6K. I mean, he's so frustrating, and he's kind of in a similar Ayuk thing where he's rusty. But I mean, even last week we saw he gets high value targets, and he can pop off in any game. So, and he's just 6K for 5% ownership. If you're stacking up this game, it makes sense to target him.
Yep. I think, like we said, I'd much rather prefer to play the Cincy pass side of this game. The Ravens' run defense is good. And then even if you do want to get to the run game, are you playing Zach Moss or are you playing Chase Brown? They're splitting work. I don't think they're going to be very efficient against the Ravens. Good Lord.
Tell Rouston to chill out.
I know. Must be urgent. Yes, like if you're playing the side of the Bengals, probably I'm out on the running backs. I don't think I'm getting there.
Agreed. It's too thin on this big of a slate.
Yep. Another fun environment here will be the Bills and the Texans. Somebody's at the door. You want to give me a second here?
Yeah. You want me to talk about it? Okay. All right. Bills Texans 47.5 total. I actually haven't checked to see. I haven't updated these totals today. They were last updated yesterday afternoon. I haven't seen where this one's been moving all week, but I mean, it's hard not to like this environment. The Bills just gave up 35 points to the Ravens. I believe Matt Milano is still out for the Bills. And he's a big piece of their defense. Let me check on their injury report really quick. So Terrell Bernard practice. Shakir's out. Taylor Rapp's out. Ed Oliver's out. So Bills are still really thin defensively. And Tank Dell's coming back, which is obviously great for Houston's passing game. And Houston's offense just feels a lot like the Niners without the Mason kind of easy click. just you have an elite passing game, elite quarterback, 2, 3 elite pass catchers. You can stack any combination of them, any number of them, and it feels pretty good. And you could even get really weird and do stuff like Josh Allen with 2 Texans receivers or whatever, because Josh Allen also has that not same, but similar rushing upside to Lamar. There's just a lot of fun ways to target this game, and it should be just an absolute banger to watch. So I'm excited to play guys from this game.
Yeah, do we know Shakir's status? He's out, right?
He's out. I just looked that up. And Terrell Bernardo's out. Ed Oliver's out. Another defensive lineman's out.
So I mean, that gives a huge bump to Curtis Samuel. Yeah, I mean, as far as stacking the Bills, it feels to me like the Ravens were. Yeah, you could stack receivers with Josh Allen, and that can hit, but there's no guarantee that if Josh Allen hits, he's bringing a receiver with him. So I do kind of like the idea that you play Josh Allen and then you come back with receivers on the other sside, and that's kind of like your weird stack.
Yeah. It looks like we still have Shakir projected. I'm sure that's going to change. What is Curtis Samuel 40? Samuel at 4,200 feels I don't know the right term for this. I was going to say safe, but not safe. But he feels like a decent punt with Shakir out. When he's been on the field, Buffalo's been targeting him pretty heavily, but it's usually kind of like short little dump offs and screens, getting the ball in his hands. I feel like his role's going to change a little bit with Shakir out. Keon Coleman's been in and out of snaps. He switches up with Matt Collins, who's like the ultimate cardio guy.
Yeah.
But Keon Coleman also gets deep targets he's like the one guy that Josh Allen seems to trust with deep targets. So you could do that for 4,700, but I'm not really rushing to play any Bills pass catchers.
No, yeah, and this to me is more of a game environment stack than it is like stuff into lineups as a last person in. Like both of these teams are like negative in PROE this season. So if they can, I think they're going to try to control the game environment on the ground. But I do see like scenarios where there's a potential for big plays on both sides of the ball. And I can see it, turning into a shootout. So like if I'm playing this game environment, it's probably going to be through like a full game stack rather than like a one-off from either side.
Yeah, I saw on in the Sims I ran earlier, I got no CJ Stroud, but then like 2% Josh Allen and 20% Nico Collins.
Okay.
So that was in the top 150, I should say, top 150 lineups from that sim. I didn't sim FanDuel. I'll do that later this week, probably tomorrow. But I'm sure that's going to change a little bit once I update the projections for Shakir being out. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a great game to target, and it's going to be a good game to watch. Nico Collins is probably the best receiver in the NFL right now, and he's still 7,700, so that's cheaper than Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is 8K. So Collins seems like he's going to be a good click for the rest of the year, even with Tank Dell back. Yeah, it's a good game.
With you there. Other games you should probably hit on here. Packers, Rams. Kyron's going to be really popular this week just because he's got great role as a running back.
My guy I talked about last week.
Yeah.
Gordon Whittington. I talked about him when he was 1% owned. Now he's 23% owned.
Yeah, he's finally getting schemed up. McVay's getting him the ball. He's sort of stepped into that cup role where he's getting scheme targets, and they're kind of relying on him for constant volume down the field.
Yep.
This game environment in general, I think I kind of like getting to. Packers have Jordan Love back. Their offense looked a lot better. Last week we were touting Jaden Reed, and that worked out really well. He seems like he's doing pretty good work for them. And then like you got Dontavian Wicks as for like the flyer, super high ceiling, but also super low floor player. There's good options on both sides of the ball here as far as price adjusted stuff. They're relatively cheap, and they're getting volume in an offense in a game environment where there's going to be points scored. I like both running sides of the ball here. Josh Jacobs I like this week along with Kyron Williams. Just playing him at like a discount for ownership. I don't think a lot of people are going to be going there. And then like you said, Jordan Whittington, Tutu Atwell on the Rams side of the ball, and then Wicks and Reed on the other side.
Yeah, Whittington seems he's probably the one guy at ownership I would probably look to be under on. I know McVay's scheming him targets, but especially on FanDuel where you just need touchdowns, I'm more likely to play. I think him and like Keon Coleman, for example, are the same price on FanDuel. I'd rather just take the quarter ownership discount where Whittington on FanDuel is like 20% and Keon Coleman's 5%. I'd rather just take the 5% guy who has shown he at least gets some end zone targets. And you're just getting that ownership discount, which is massive in this game we play.
Yeah, I mean, I get that Whittington's cheap at 4,600 too, but I think we were both on the Whittington train for like 2 weeks prior where we were expecting him to get that schemed usage and it never came. So, I mean, aside from being burned by him, he's a super thin play at 22% ownership.
Yes.
And it's a huge slate with plenty of options to choose from. If he's a guy that's popping up a ton in sims for me, I'm going to probably squash it down.
Yes, agreed there. Let me see what I got for him on these DraftKings. I think I ended up getting a bunch on these DraftKings sims without adjusting. I'm probably going to end up forcing exposure to be lower than the field on that, probably down to like 15. I mean, I'll still have some. And actually, that should be on FanDuel. I should say I'll probably end up about 10% on FanDuel because I don't play on DraftKings right now. So this seems about right to me, about half the field on ownership. And I still have some exposure in case he ends up being like Cooper Kupp or this year's Puka. But I just think we can get different there. And I'd rather pay up for the expensive chalk than pay for the cheap chalk.
Yeah, fun stat here. The Rams defense is 31st in both run and pass DVOA. So it might be Packers week. They're giving up like 300 or more yards a game at least combined. It just kind of feels like the Packers are kind of cooking on offense. The Rams are giving up yards everywhere, all over the field. It's just kind of hard not to like the Packers this week.
Yeah, Rams are second in, or 31st, second to last in EPA per play as well.
Yeah,
and second to last in pass EPA allowed. So, and I think they're worst in run defense, run EPA. So, good team to target against, I guess, is the long story short there.
Just stream teams against the Rams as long as it's not like the Broncos or the Browns.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of the Browns this week, we pull them up. Is this or is the Jags game the nasty one that you want to play?
Oh, that's neither one of those.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's touch a bit on the Browns and the Commanders here. Last week, the Browns, I think every week we just mentioned how we don't want to play Deshaun Watson or Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper missed out on like a 40-point game, 40-point slate last week. He dropped a long ball, and then his 80-yard touchdown got called back. So, I mean, that's like 20 points right there that he missed out on.
And there was another one that he just straight dropped and
hit him in the chest plate and it just bounced off.
Yeah. So, Deshaun looked better last week, but I just can't. I think like for moral reasons, I can't play Deshaun Watson.
I mean, they get the Commanders this week. The secondary is not great there. I don't want to play them either, but what is the ownership? So they're getting healthy ownership, so maybe I can talk myself out of it, but it feels like at 6,200, Amari Cooper's got a ceiling on a team that can be passing the ball. And if Deshaun Watson continues to look better and Amari Cooper grows a pair of hands, it might be a spot where he unlocks a ceiling eventually. I don't know if it's something I want to be early on or just try to fade completely as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'll probably end up with some Amari Cooper flex. I feel like at 10% ownership. But just like this doesn't. The only way I would see myself targeting this game as like a full stack is if Washington is just like truly that badass at offense, and I ended up with like a Jaden Daniels stack of like Jaden Daniels and 2 pass catchers or something. But I'm not going to be targeting. I just don't think Cleveland has the horses on offense to be like in the 35-31 shootout with Washington.
Yeah, I could see it going that way too, where like Cleveland is able to generate a lot of pressure on defense, and I'm not sure how Jaden Daniels will handle that. He can scramble, obviously, and make plays, but I don't think we've seen Jaden go up against like a Cleveland level defense so far this season. He's kind of had a cakewalk for the first 4 weeks. Not a cakewalk, but he hasn't played, defenses that generate pressure and force you to make errors. So I'm kind of curious as to see how he does this week as like a litmus test for going forward and playing him.
Yeah. There's a case I think to be made for Jaden Daniels as like the best quarterback play for a couple. First reason would be like, what if his Cleveland defense is just way overrated? They still have Myles Garrett, but aside from that, like who do they have now? The other reason would be Cleveland like famously plays a ton of man. I think they were number 1 in man coverage last year, and Jaden Daniels so far this year has run the ball a ton. Like pretty much every time he faces a team with man coverage, his rush rate is really high. So I could see him be. There's a case for him to be made to be like the top quarterback play on this slate from that perspective, where he just gets the rushing upside, and we know he can pass.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna have a ton of it, but I think it's at least worth mentioning the Browns passing game. Noah Brown looked also pretty good last week.
Noah Brown, man.
Yeah.
So funny how never mind. It's that shit. He's 3,900. He's super cheap. We could punt him for sure. Like if I get him in a Jaden Daniels stack, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I can't play Noah Brown. I'd rather play Noah Brown at 1% ownership than Jordan Whittington at 22% ownership.
Yeah, I like that.
Alan Coleman or Burrow Higgins. Jeez, man. It depends on the rest of the lineup, I think.
I'd probably lean Burrow Higgins.
I'd probably lean Allen. I'd have to once I reproject, I'll have a better answer once I reproject the Bills. But I feel like personally, I would end up on the Alan Coleman side when we looked at the ownership of those two games.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of a game environment decision where I see more past the upside for the Bengals pass attack than I do the Bills. I think there's just more ways for the Bills to control the game, either on the ground or on the defense. Whereas I think the Bengals are going to have to throw the ball, and it's got a higher total, closer spread. Well, maybe not a closer spread, but the spread is close. I think there's more pass for Burrow Higgins ceiling than there is in Alan Coleman.
That's fair. Does the price end up being about equal? It probably does, doesn't it? Allen was like 8K and 4,700 for Coleman, and Burrow was like 7 and 6,000 for. Yeah, it's probably about the same.
Yeah,
the Alan Coleman one is definitely more boom or bust, because Coleman could just like not see the field. We could see like a weird Mac Hollins takes 96% of the snaps or whatever with Shakir out. But I like that Coleman acts as direct leverage off of chalk value play this week, where he's the same price as Whittington, and he's 120, it's 1/5 the ownership or 1/4 the ownership. So just playing, I like it for that reason. Even if your case probably makes more sense, I guess. Better answer.
Yeah, like you said, it matters on the rest of the lineup too, like where you're taking on chalk and whether you're playing for a super high ceiling game in like a large contest, or maybe it's a smaller 3 entry or single entry.
Yeah, like if you have a Burrow Higgins, Zay Flowers from that game, for example, and you could absolutely play Whittington in that lineup because that's going to be such a really unique combination. But if the chalkier the lineup, other pieces in the lineup are, the less I want to play Whittington.
Oh, he says he's playing Henry already, high dollar. I mean, in that scenario, I'd probably lean a lot more towards Burrow and Higgins and play the game environment where Baltimore's just Henry's got his 100 yards and a touchdown, and the Bengals are throwing from behind.
Yep. If you're playing Henry, like he's locked in, then I definitely would prefer the Burrow Higgins.
Yeah. Giants Seahawks. Not a great total and spread here, but there are ceiling players on both sides of the ball here that can open up a slate.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors is still out, right?
Yep, as far as I know.
That really hurts the case for this game as like a full stack, in my opinion.
Probably why the total is down, but yeah, he's out.
Yeah, this Seattle team, Geno's looked good so far this year, that's for sure. Kenneth Walker, would he have 3 touchdowns on Monday night against a tough run defense? So, I mean, I would rather just play Kenneth Walker and hope that Geno doesn't have 4 touchdowns to Metcalf. Personally, like the Giants are just so not fun until they get rid of Daniel Jones and just have a new quarterback from Malik Neighbors. They're just a tough team for me to get behind, and they can stay in a shootout, right? And the kind of like ceiling game that you need for one of these games to separate as the game you need to have pieces from.
Yeah, I mean, without Neighbors, you're throwing to a cast of Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt. It's like they're not going to be able to move the ball with consistency.
Yeah, I saw somebody joke that Wan'Dale Robinson without Neighbors is exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
HM pay.
That's going to be the whole game for them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you there, and it's kind of weird seeing ownership come in not heavy, I'd say, but I mean, Geno 15%, DK over 10%, JSN 8%, Lockett a bit lower, but it seems like a lot of ownership coming to a game where there's a lot of pass to failure.
Yeah. Agreed there. I mean, Geno skinny stacks with DK, even at 14 and 10%, that feels pretty good to me against the Giants secondary. But when we're talking about a game stack, I'm thinking of like quarterback, 2 receivers, and a bring back, or even just quarterback, receiver, bring back. And in this case, like I just don't want to bring anyone from the Giants back.
Yeah. I mean, Slayton or Tyrone Tracy, nearly identical price. I mean, if you're a gun to your head and you're picking one, I'd have to take Darius Slayton. But I have zero confidence in Daniel Jones, and I have zero confidence in these Giants pass catchers.
Yeah, I'd rather just let the Sims. I'd rather have the Sims make that decision for me than like. That's really if building a single lineup. I'd try to avoid having Darius Slayton in it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be playing any Giants in a single entry.
Yeah.
Colts Jags.
But I would absolutely play the Geno Metcalf stack on its own and without a bring back in the single entry. I think that's totally fine in single entry this week.
Yeah, I mean the Seahawks could win like 35-7 or 35-17, and I wouldn't be too shocked. You don't have to run back a Giant at all, and you could totally get away with just stacking the Seahawks and pretending like the Giants don't exist.
Yeah, I think y'all be better off.
Yeah. Kind of a fun matchup here, I think. Not fun in a good way, I don't think, but Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson sort of fighting for like, Joker of the year as far as quarterback goes and being below expectations. But that being said, both of these teams play fast. The defenses here are exploitable. The receivers on Jacksonville and is Anthony Richardson playing this week? He's not in, is he?
Special announcement for Dan. We are actually inducting ourselves into the AceMind Ring of Honor on the Sunday night stream this week. So tune in for that one.
Still limited. Okay, so Richardson's limited in practice. I like this game a lot better if they roll out Joe Flacco. He looked capable and competent, more so than A-Rich did. And we'll see more Pittman and Downs involvement as far as passing. And then on the other side of the ball, if the Jags can stay in it, I mean, it's a -3 spread, not a whole lot of spread there. Travis Etienne, I think, can have a better game script here. Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk are both good options on the Jags. Evan Ingram as well.
Yeah, what's your take on in the Sims I was running earlier? I was getting probably double the field on Trey Sermon. Do you have a take on Trey Sermon? Because to me, Niners and Sooners legends, Trey Sermon, by the way. To me, that feels extremely thin. 16% ownership at $5,700. I mean, does he even really like how many snaps did he play last week when Taylor went out? Did he play all of them? Did he get all the? I mean, I don't know. It feels super thin, Trey Sermon at that ownership this week.
Well, I mean, their backfield in general is super thin, and I don't think it's a scenario where he's stepping into a full workload. I think they're probably going to try to stay away from that. If Joe Flacco's under center, they might just throw like 3 to 7 yard passes all game.
Tyler Goodson was productive at Iowa. I'm not saying he's like going to be a good NFL back, but like he's at least a name that it wouldn't shock me if like actually Tyler Goodson got 60% of the snaps this week and Trey Sermon only got 40%. So, or the other option is maybe the Colts will just go pass heavier or run Richardson more, and we get more looks for Pittman and Downs. I think Downs is awesome, by the way. He's so good. He was the best. I think he was the number 1 receiver last year by separation. So he was incredible last year. So now that he's healthy, I don't mind getting to him. I don't mind getting to this game at all. It's just Sermon. I'm just more worried about getting that Sermon chuck.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you too. The QBs are lower owned, so if you're playing a stack, you can get chalky elsewhere. I think people are going to be doing the ETN or Kirk one-offs just because the pricing is good on both of them, and they've shown good production so far this season.
I'm still waiting for that Brian Thomas Jr. like 10 catch, 150-yard, 2-touchdown game. It's coming at some point. Lawrence, in my opinion, clearly likes targeting him over the other two receivers. I don't know. I like BTJ or BT Junior, I suppose.
And it could be his week too, because I mean, with Evan Ingram back, him and Christian Kirk are sort of fighting over that target share in the middle of the field. So it could open up, his role in his route tree. And I don't know, the -3 for the Jags, right? Yeah. So I mean, Jags are favored here so far. And if they get out in front with a couple touchdowns and stuff, I think I kind of see why people are leaning towards ETN as far as like they just want to run the ball out and get a win on the win column.
Yeah, betting on Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence to win by margin in the year of our Lord 2024 seems not something I would be doing or recommending.
Yeah, and if Joe Flacco's in over Anthony Richardson, I think it becomes even more attractive as far as
especially
the game environment goes. Yeah.
Yeah. If Flacco's in, down becomes a great play at 5,100. I mean, right in the same ballpark as Whittington. Flacco clearly likes targeting him. Yeah, I would like Downs a lot if Richardson's out.
With you there. Anything else you want to touch on from this game?
Nope.
And Panthers Bears.
Yeah, this is the one.
This is the one. Oh no. Well,
no, I do. I'm not saying I'm like jamming everybody from this game in, but I do think similar case to last week. This Carolina defense sucks, as we saw last week, especially against the pass. And to me, it's just a similar case we made for Caleb Williams at 0 ownership to finally have his breakout game, which has to be coming at some point. DeAndre Swift, he had the one big run last week and kind of saved his job. It looked like Rashawn Johnson was going to take it over. Johnson had the goal line carry the week before last week. But I don't really have much faith in DeAndre Swift at this point in his career. And I just think at some point we're going to see the Caleb Williams against a bad defense throw it back to USC.
I like that. I mean, last week we saw, Keenan Allen's dust, right? We can't play Keenan Allen anymore.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, he can, but I do feel like he's one of those receivers that sort of like Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, where they just have like a special. They've been playing together for so long, they know exactly what each other are going to do. I feel like Keenan Allen is that kind of receiver where the quarterback needs to be really comfortable with him and have played with him for a while to really know what Keenan Allen's going to be doing on each route, and for him to get the big PPR days like he used to get with Justin Herbert. So I wouldn't say he's like complete dust as a player, but I do feel like into this year or maybe next year is like when we can actually start targeting Keenan Allen as a TFS play again.
Yeah, and the receiving options are pretty good around that, like DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. I think those are probably really good options there as far as stacking. If you just are just sort of betting on like the running back role being shaky in Chicago and DeAndre Swift not really getting the production that he is sort of projected for, just sort of playing the Caleb Williams 2 pass catcher stack and maybe coming back with Deontay Johnson or Xavier Legette.
Yeah, at some point Odunze is going to have a monster week too. He's too talented. He was so good at Washington last year. He's shown flashes this year, and like Caleb Williams has missed him on a couple of deep balls that his game logs will be looking way different. He'd hit on those. So yeah, at some point we're going to see the breakout for the Bears offense. It may not be sustainable, but it's going to be we're going to see it at some point this year. We'll see a ceiling game for the Bears. It might take 18 weeks, but we'll see what. I just like getting this stack at 2% ownership for the quarterback, either one of DJ Moore or Odunze at 2% or 1%, and then we can play the Panthers skill position chalk and bring it back.
I like that too. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that the other side of the ball is chalkier. I get the pricing's good, but the Panthers are not.
Yeah.
So I mean, I like that. I think I'm definitely gonna be overweight, 2 or 3% Caleb Williams. He's got the rushing upside. He has a ceiling in his bag, and the stacking options are good.
Yeah. One other thing from this game, I already said I'm not really on. I don't really want to play DeAndre Swift at 14%, but I think this Bears defense is also pretty underrated. And if I'm not stacking up this game or the Bears passing attack, I don't really want to bring it back with the 2 chalk Panthers this week with the Deontay or Chuba. I know Deontay caught the touchdown last week, but I feel like especially on FanDuel, I can just not have to play this play the Panthers at all and be fine.
Yeah, I do kind of like the cheeky like quarterback pass catcher DST stack as well. That's a good shout. Last game, well, there's 2 games we have to talk about, but we probably don't spend a whole lot of time on them, and that's the Raiders and the Broncos.
Yeah.
I mean, Bo Nix and Gardner Minshew. What do you want from them?
That's a great question.
Although it does look like Javonte Williams is coming in with ownership. Cheap.
Yeah, I was getting him and Sims. Their favorite at home, low total, so sure. But I mean, Tyler Beatty, who looked like he might be getting a lot more in line for a lot more touches, got hurt last week with like a really weird, scary injury. So maybe there's a little more safety now for Javonte Williams, but he's been so disappointing out of college. I thought he was going to be a great running back. He was amazing at North Carolina. So I'll try to be right around the field probably on Javonte. I don't have much of a take there. I am interested a tiny bit in one of Myers or Bowers. I do think especially if they're trailing, we could see some PPR volume for one of those two.
Yeah, I like that.
It's gross though. Like that's not like I'm going to be boosting those guys. It's more like maybe I'll have like a little slight boost on their projections and a negative correlation or something just to see what the Sims spit out there. I think in their Sims I ran earlier, I didn't get much of either. So
yeah, I mean these 2 game environments are not like the first stop on anybody's lineup.
Yeah,
just they're not good totals. They're not good teams. It's going to be like max 1 of these teams for sure.
Yeah, same with this last game.
Yeah, Dolphins, Patriots, the 2 stalwarts, Jacoby Brissett and Tyler Huntley, going to go have a battle of the minds on the field. Ownership-wise, doesn't look like a whole lot of love here, except for the favorite running back, the Patriots, Ramondre. He's got a good workload, but so far the season hasn't been that great. And it's just the Patriots can't put him in a position to score points, really.
Yeah, there's been some talk this week. It may just be like motivational talk, but there was talk this week about Ramondre losing touches or losing his starting job to Antonio Gibson because of the fumbles. I mean,
dude, he loses a ball on every single drive. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is fair. Miami has a good run defense anyway, or they've at least been good so far this year. I'm not rushing to play Ramondre or Antonio Gibson. I mean, there's not much from this game. Jalen Polk at some point, maybe when Drake May starts playing, is going to look like a talented receiver. But right now, he had a ridiculous catch against the Niners that I don't remember if they ended up overturning it, but he was getting drilled on the sideline and like arms outstretched like this, just caught the ball. I think he's going to be a really good receiver in the league, but this isn't the week for him. I don't think. You can always go to A-Chain or Tyreek Hill at 0 ownership, and either one of them have the potential for 2 80-yard touchdowns. So that's fine, but
yeah, I mean, at some point, the A-Chain and Hill are going to be like super good buy low candidates. Like 7,600 for Tyreek Hill is kind of crazy. It kind of feels like the Dolphins have let up the gas a bit on as far as like A-Chain's work role, and they are going to be a buy low candidate at some point. But I don't think this week is the week where I'm like, all right, it's time to start playing Dolphins.
And also a short week, so it's not like Huntley had a full week for McDaniel to kind of implement more of the offense. You know what was crazy to me that Monday night game? Just like the fans in Miami were so upset they actually booed. Like the first time they actually showed any kind of like cheering or anything. Like been watching Miami sports teams forever. I guess Heat fans love the Heat, but the Dolphins fans actually were upset enough to start booing like they're in Philadelphia. It was crazy.
Yeah. If you're playing the Millie, sure, throw in like Tyreek Hill. Nobody's going to play him, and he's got the ceiling, but not a cornerstone of any lineup this week. The game environment in total is just not a good area.
Are we starting? I haven't checked weather for any of these, by the way. Is this a weather game? I wonder, are any of these weather games? We're getting to that time of year now. We actually have to pay attention to that.
Yeah. In New England, I don't think it's going to be too bad. There was a rainy game last week, I think, but maybe it was Monday or Sunday. There was a super rainy game.
Yeah, I don't see anything. So we'll assume that it's just going to be like a normal, no weather impact until I see otherwise.
Well, I've got a sim loaded up here. Just got defaults on for now. I haven't ran a sim yet for this slate, so I'm kind of curious to see what pops up. But while this runs, do you want to kind of go position by position and shout out a few players?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I'm kind of going to do it like last week, where relative to ownership, relative to the field spots you want to get to. For me this week at quarterback, I like the Burrow stacks a lot, the Bengals. If you can, I'm going to see what the Sims shake out, but if you can stack like Burrow, Jamar, and then bring back Derrick Henry on the other side, you're using up basically all your salary in those three spots, but I think the ceiling across those three players is pretty elite, and the game environment should be good.
Yep, agreed there. I already talked about I have some interest in Caleb Williams and the Bears again. And then we'll say Josh Allen just for the fun of it. They got embarrassed on Sunday night. This feels like a decent bounce back spot here. And I let people talk about the negative PROEs for both teams from Bobby Slowick and Joe Brady, but I think both have shown a willingness to throw the ball once their teams fall behind, and I think that's could be the case here for either one of these teams if somebody gets a lead. So I just like that. I just like the skill players in that game too much to not have some exposure here to Allen and Stroud.
Yeah, they're sort of both teams that let the game environment come to them, as far as they're going to run the ball when they're ahead and they're going to pass when they're behind. And it could be a back and forth situation, and it could not be. It's definitely like you said, if you're going to play the game, like play the game. Don't just take one or two players from it.
Yeah, agreed.
At running back, we've got Mason and Kyron as sort of the chalk, followed by Chuba. Fine spots, probably more so on the Kyron side and Mason side for me. Not a whole lot of love for Chuba or Trey below him. But for me, a guy that I'm going to be super overweight on this week is Josh Jacobs on a revamped, re-healthy Packers offense. And the Rams can't stop the ball if there was like a nail through it.
Yeah, ownership at running back this week feels pretty efficient. I guess maybe the Trey Sermon one you could say is too much ownership on him. I suppose Kenny Walker would be somebody I'm interested in that Giants Seahawks game.
Yeah,
but that's mostly like out of desperation. I just don't want that game to be like the shootout that you absolutely have to have, because I'm probably not going to be playing very much of it. So let's go Kenneth Walker.
Right on. Boy wants us to shout out sub 10% at each position. Yeah, we can do that. I think at quarterback, both of our quarterbacks were sub 10. Burrow at 5, Allen at 3. So definitely lower on the ownership chart there. And Josh Jacobs is just under 10 here, and Kenneth Walker is just a little above 10. Derrick Henry's at 9%. Obviously, it's super huge ceiling there. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Even lower.
Yeah, it gets thin quick.
It does. Boy, it does.
A-Chain always has the upside for super loan, but I really don't think you need to be. I don't think we need to be playing around with the super loan running backs this week.
10% Jacobs, 9% Henry, and 11% Kenneth are pretty well owned. I will shout out ETN at 13%. The game environment should start to work in his favor against the Colts, and he's just been scripted out of the last 4 weeks as far as like the Jags just need to throw the ball. So if they can come out and get ahead here and just pound the rock with ETN, I do think he has more upside this week than he has in weeks past.
I hate playing ETN. And also, I think Tank Bigsby might be better than him.
He might be. I had ETN on my season long last year, and it was quite the experience.
Yeah.
Tight end this week is pretty gross. Ownership's kind of thin or spread out everywhere, but Kittle's in a great spot with Purdy back, or Kittle back with Purdy, I should say. Good team total, and the spread's in his favor. Do you have for me, tight end, I just kind of let the Sims handle that. And if it's stacked with a quarterback, I think that's pretty good. But for the most part, I don't touch tight end a whole lot, or I'm not making huge stands on them.
Yep. Agreed there. Low shout, probably. I guess I'm interested in Brock Bowers at no ownership. I'm just going to keep playing him. I think Kate Otten had a big PPR day against the Broncos when they played, and that was a nice win for them against the Jets last week. But the weather was also crazy. It was just driving rain the entire game. So I don't want to overreact to how good the Broncos defense has appeared the last couple of weeks, and I don't mind getting Bowers exposure.
No, he's gonna have a day here soon. Like eventually, Brock Bowers is gonna be an elite tight end. Just not sure when. It's gonna be harder with Gardner Minshew throwing him balls, but
yeah. But if the game plays a script and the Broncos are ahead, the Raiders have to throw the ball. That's the case for Bowers, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And Cole Kmet, by the way, Cole Kmet has kind of reappeared in the Bears rotation.
Yeah.
After like the first couple of weeks, he wasn't even playing. He finally started getting snaps and touches against the Texans, and now he's fully back to. I don't want to say fully back, but back to what? I mean, he's back as a play, I suppose, as a tight end.
Yeah, I mean they've loved him in the red zone historically, and if you're playing that Caleb Williams stack, I think it's a great spot as far as if you want a stacking option. Good Lord, I need some water. He's a big red zone target for them, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he's catching touchdowns.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, we've got Whittington and Debo up top as pretty popular options. We kind of touched on Whittington, whereas like as the highest owned receiver on the slate, it feels really thin and there's a lot of pass to failure there. Debo, on the other hand, not so much. Good price on him. Ownership is there, but same with Kittle. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to score, and the Niners are pressing the ball down the field with Brock, so I like that a lot.
Yeah, Nico at 15%. I mean, like I said, he might be the best receiver in the league right now. Even at that price, he feels fine to me. DK 7K. I mean, we're still not at sub 10% ownership, but DK is like I don't know what to compare. He's almost like Giannis, like just an absolute physical freak. Where it's just like there's nobody really like him. You watch him; he looks like a defensive end playing receiver. He's just way bigger than these corners.
Massive.
So I don't mind him at all against the Giants secondary. Ayuk, the first sub 10% receiver. I think I like him as a pivot off of Debo. If you're trying to get some Niners exposure. And McLaurin would be the other one, I guess, with that Washington. If you want to stack him up with Daniels, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of pivots, Tutu Atwell has been fairly involved and productive in the Rams offense, and he's 6% compared to Whittington's 22%. I'm not betting on like a full Rams smash pot, but I do kind of like flip-flopping those two, where if people are playing Whittington more than Tutu now, I'll just flip that, and if production goes Tutu's way, it's a great like trampoline spot.
And Tutu gets he's the high A dot guy. That's sort of like his role. So if he catches a couple of them, he could absolutely smash.
Yeah, we'll shout out Marvin Harrison at 2% again. Ceiling is there, and the game script is in his favor, and you're gonna be throwing the ball, and the ceiling is there. At 2%, it just seems easy to get like 5% of him and call it a day.
Yeah, I do also Dobbs at like. What is Dontavian Wicks ownership right now? What did I have him projected for? It's like
12 for Wicks and 3 for Dobbs.
Dobbs at 3% feels like a play. I'd rather play that than Wicks. I know Wicks got the end zone targets last week, but like Dobbs is out there every snap. So
yeah, I mean Wicks is not outperforming Dobbs at a 400% rate. 3 versus 12. It's the actual. Ceiling outcomes are closer than that for them.
And compare the difference in the projection and standard deviations. Like what? I mean, that's so minuscule, really, right?
Yep.
Like, I'd much rather play Dobbs.
Yeah. Let's check out our sim here and see what's coming up. I wanted us to see if the sims are like in double tight end this week, and it does not look like it. I think in general, with the way scoring's gone in the NFL, I think running back in the flex has become either more popular or more optimal, just because teams are running more and they're getting more production on the ground, and the passing attack isn't as potent as it used to be.
Yeah, it's just harder now for offenses to. The specific problem is the defenses are playing a lot more shell coverage, not giving up deep balls like they used to, and so it ends up with a lot of underneath catches and runs for running backs and fewer deep touchdowns for receivers.
Yeah,
that's why we've seen a lot of like these 3 running back lambs end up being in the winning.
So at a quick glance in our 150 set, the curious thing I'm looking at, it caught my eye, was all the Broncos D were getting, and it kind of does make sense.
Yeah,
they're cheap, and in a low total game against Gardner Minshew, I could see that just being an easy click for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't normally care about defense exposure, but I will, like, if I got 52% in my 150, I would look to limit that. Just probably filter that down to like 25 or whatever.
Yeah, we'll knock that down. Jordan Whittington, like you said, seems to be pretty popular here. Another guy that we're trying to be not as heavy on. It's definitely not over the field. It's a thin play, and if people are already going there, you're not gaining a lot by playing him.
Yeah, in general, defense is the hardest position to project in that it has by far the most variance, and we are bad. We, as like the fantasy community, are bad at projecting defensive outcomes. So even like that's true for Showdown as well. Like if the time to play defense in the Showdown is when people aren't going to play them, and the times to not play defense in Showdown is when people are going to play them because you have no idea what defense is going to do for fantasy scoring. And so in general, I don't like to get a huge amount of one defense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. OA asked for a feature request that I agree with him with here. Like, so if you want to filter down stuff, like for example, I can come in here and click out players I don't want to play, for example, like Tyler Huntley or Gardner Minshew. Having a way to set like unclick all or click all would be super nice here, especially when you get into deep fields like wide receiver. You don't want to go through it and scroll through them all. So I think that's a good idea. Good suggestion there.
Yeah, I'm already looking at the exposures on the right, and there's just like Whittington. I mean, I'll have to do some experimentation to see how I'm gonna limit them, but probably it's gonna end up being adjustments to their individual projections. Like I'm gonna try to be around the field on Whittington, around the field on probably under the field on Sermon, or actually I said under the field on Whittington as well. But I'll be running lots of sims tonight and tomorrow, trying to figure out what's the best way to get to kind of my desired level of exposure for these players. Because like I don't want to be playing 61% Colby Parkinson, for example.
No. And if we take a look at the team exposures here, we see sort of the stacks we're getting with 31% Seahawks, 23 Niners, 14 Green Bay, 8% Giants. So, I mean, like for me, for example, I'd be limiting the Seahawks here and probably totally limiting the Giants and sort of seeing what bubbles up and just kind of keep going through and setting exposures to where I get stuff I want. Like I like playing the Niners and the Packers this week. Washington, I'm fine getting to. I do want to play more of the Bengals, so I probably will bump the Bengals up for my set. And this is kind of like a general way for you to run a sim and filter your 150 set afterwards rather than before. But like Blaine said, if you run a sim and you're not getting quite what you like, I do think it's better to go back and adjust things and then rerun the sim and get sort of closer to what you want rather than doing all of your exposures here.
Yeah, the way my general method for doing it is we have like the multi-sim, multi-field. I'll usually just turn that off and just run one field per sim, and I'll do like the flea flicker, whatever contest I'm simming. Not a small field. So like a small field, I'll still run multiple generations, but any kind of large field contest, I'll just do one generation. That way, I just get more sims done, in the same amount of time, and it's just quicker to adjust my exposures on the fly, adjust my projections on the fly, and then at the final run when I'm ready to put in my lineups, then we run the full. I usually do 7 generations. Lucky number 7.
Nice. Yeah, kind of curious. It looks like the sims are kind of lower on. I boosted them up, but the Bengals and the Ravens game, and I'm wondering if that's just a pricing thing where it's easier to get more median projection out of some guys in the mid range rather than the ceiling outcomes of like a Chase plus Henry plus Lamar.
If you scroll down to where we start getting Burrow lineups, where the primary stack is always the quarterback. So if we scroll down to where we start getting Burrows, what do those lineups even look like? There's Keenan Allen. There's your guy.
Yeah.
A naked Burrow with Keenan Allen, that's exactly the lineup you dreamed up.
Yeah, so something I would do here for sure is go through and say, like, I don't want any naked Joe Burrow lineups. OA asks, can you quick set global exposure limit, like no one over 40%? Yeah, so over on the right side, we did that with a few players here. Like, for example, we were getting over 50% of the Broncos, and we set a max exposure of 20. So that's how you would do like a global exposure limit to make sure that there's no more than 20% Broncos in your lineups.
Yep, there isn't like a blanket number you can type in and have it affect every filter. If that's what you're asking, like there isn't like
like no player over 40. Yeah, so like for example, you could come in here and just say like 40 the whole way down. It does kind of suck, but you'll get to a point where like nobody's coming up over 40.
And it also probably would help setting your min uniques a little higher.
Yep, I agree there.
There you go. You already just did it. You got your max 40.
So yeah, Joe Burrow. I'm curious. So that's with Jamar and Gesicki. Down at the bottom, we'll get more of them here. Jamar. So that's kind of good because I want to avoid the scenario where I'm only getting Joe Burrow with like T or Gesicki or both of them. Like if I'm playing him, I do want to play him with a good amount of Jamar, and it looks like he is popping up.
So I guess to explain why Burrow's at the bottom, how the exposure filters work, we are ordering the sim results or your optimizer results by lineup score or optimizer results by projection, I think.
Yeah.
And so when you are like forcing minimum exposure on a player, what we're doing is we're filtering out the bottom X% of lineups and then bringing in the best remaining lineups that have Burrow. So that's why like we're still sorting on lineup score in this output. So that's why they're all stacked together at the bottom. So like if you were to see the lineups that we hit in order to get to 18% Burrow, they would have a higher lineup score in our sims with whatever lineup weights you used or weights you used for the scoring.
Yeah, like here's this ideal stack I'm looking for is the Burrow, Henry, Jamar, and this one includes Gesicki as well. But you still got a lot of pretty good plays in here, like as far as like Christian Kirk, Wicks. Then you do have to save some salary elsewhere. Like we've got Javonte Williams and we've got Ramondre Stevenson, who aren't in great spots. But if you just get an okay performance from them and you get the ceiling games from Chase, Wicks, Kirk, Henry, Burrow, you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I would note I would be careful if like just with this example of Joe Burrow, you want 18%. I would be careful of getting too much of one player as a combination. Like in this case, it's Gesicki. Mm-hmm. I would probably look to limit Gesicki down to like, I don't know what his ownership is. I mean, you still want to make sure you have your filter over what the ownership is for the field in order to make sure you get some Burrow lineups. But I would be just check your like combinations. I suppose would be the way to say it. Your combination ownership with your quarterbacks.
Yeah, I like that. So, like, for example, if I had 20% Burrow and 20% Gesicki, I might only want Gesicki. And, like, you know, instead of 20 and 20, I'd want, like, maybe 20 and 10 or 20 and 7 or something like that.
Yeah. And the more filters you add, the slower it's going to be.
Yeah, as you can see. But, like you said now, so now, before I think we had, like, over, like, 14 or 15% Gesicki. Now we have 6, and we see more lineups with Jamar, more lineups with T. And I don't know if you guys see what I'm doing here, but like I'm just clicking like for Brock Purdy, for example. If I click a player, it shows me what his exposure is. So it's a quick way to sort of, without scrolling through or searching for them, you can find out what your exposure is.
Yep. I cannot stress enough, like our platform is built for you guys to test with. So I highly recommend you guys kind of play around and figure out how you want to dial in your lineups and exposures to get the way you want them to be, whether it's through running multiple sims, adjusting projections, or just adjusting exposures at the end.
Yeah, and just to sort of talk about what Blaine was saying earlier with like min unique. So you can see right now we've got Whittington 62, Colby 53, Broncos 52. If you just simply up your min uniques, it's a way to sort of spread out exposure because it enforces unique players between them. So I guess 3 wasn't enough, but if we bump it up even more, it's going to lower exposures to those players because they can only play so much of them. So like now we can see Kyron bumped up, Mason bumped up, and our Broncos exposure went way down.
Yeah, and now your lineup pool should be pretty diverse because there's no lineups within 5 players of each other.
Yeah,
there's a uniqueness, right? So
yeah, so before we were like over 50 on Whittington, Parkinson, and then Mason and the Broncos were pretty close by. And now you can see the highest exposure is 46, and the rest are pretty low below that.
Yeah.
Any more questions from the YouTube chat or things you want us to cover before we head out of here? Get those in. Otherwise, Blaine, anything you want to go over for the slate before we hop off?
No.
Right on. Me neither. I don't think so. I'll give YouTube chat a minute here or so to get questions in if they want to. But in the meantime, if you're new here, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. That helps us a lot. And check out the tools, AceMind.io. Come here. It looks cool. You can come here. This is our landing page. You log in, sign up, create an account. Make sure to join us on Discord, follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. Come chat with us. We're always in the Discord helping out. So give us a shot. Try out our tools.
Shout out B Heavy with 98K win on the opening night showdown.
Yeah, dude, that was a killer spot. John, when do you usually run the last projection updates?
About 2 hours before. I'll have an update tonight or tomorrow morning, and then I'll do one last one probably about 2 hours before main state locks on Sunday. I always let people know when I update, and I'm going to push an update in our Discord.
Yeah.
If you have any?
Yeah, if you guys are in the Discord, just be on the lookout in the updates channel or the announcements channel. Both of those are places we'll update you. I think maybe you post those in the NFL chat too. So
Yep.
Just be on the lookout there. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.